Hello, I'm Andrew,
And I'm Sam.
and this is Teen Stock Politics, and this is our weekly news video, and this will be about what happened this week, and a surprising amount of things happened. However, we won't be able to cover everything in the 25 minutes we have to cover. Anyways, the first thing, this is major, and this is Andrew Cuomo, the governor of New York, will be resigning. He announced his
Mm-hmm.
resignation on Wednesday, I believe, and it will
Mm-hmm.
go into effect 14 days from Wednesday, so that'll be 2 weeks later. And his lieutenant governor will be taking over. I don't remember her name. However, she will be the first female of New York, and it kind of just wraps everything up because there's been advances and sexual assault allegations against Andrew Cuomo, against women, and it just happens that a woman will be taking his place as governor of New York, and it's very interesting to see how it just happens. It's very interesting to me that after all the things that he's done to people, it ends up being a woman to take his place. So, Sam, do you have any thoughts about this
Mm-hmm.
major resignation in the Democrat Party?
Yeah, it's insane, and I feel like it's a smart move by Cuomo and his legislative power to resign, because if he wants to preserve the Democratic, I mean, obviously it's probably not very difficult to continue holding a Democratic governorial majority in New York. But if he wants to preserve kind of his party's dignity and respect, he got to resign, right? And so
Right.
this, so he's got It's kind of a show for the Republican. I mean, not Republican, Democratic Party of, if you do this, we're not going to let you in our party anymore. As we talked about last week, Biden called for him to resign, and if you get, as you were saying last week, if you get that call from the head of government who is also in your same party, you might want to resign. And you really messed up at that point. And I feel like it's a good move by Cuomo so that he doesn't end up kind of like how Trump did, going down in a pit of fire. But it's a very very good thing for the Democratic Party to not support what Andrew Cuomo did, and so very smart.
I think a big thing that we really should talk about is about what it means for the Democrat Party moving forward. So let's say, just
Mm-hmm.
for a starting off point, let's say he had not resigned and he kept that argument. He would probably eventually be impeached. Yes, there is a Democrat majority. However, there are so many state representatives in the state of New York that have said that Cuomo should resign, that he would have been impeached, probably convicted in the state senate, and probably removed from office anyways, regardless of whether he resigned or not.
Mm-hmm.
And it would look even worse on him if he had been impeached and removed from office. And it wouldn't look very good on the Democrat Party. Yes, it's not good to have anybody that have these allegations against them. Like Al Franken back in 2017, I believe, had sexual assault allegations against him, and he did resign. And of course, Tina Smith won the special election back in 2018, taking his seat. And it's very important for, if you have allegations, regardless if they're true or not, to make sure that it doesn't taint the party in an unfavorable light. You should probably resign to basically save your seat, make sure it continues to follow line in your party, and it just saves
Mm-hmm.
how people look at the Democrat Party. And I just think that the rules between the Democrat Party and the Republican Party are very different. A Democrat, so far, if they have allegations against them, they have been historically, in the past, the 21st century, they have resigned. It's very different for the Republicans. Like, Trump has had so many sexual assault allegations against him, and he didn't even think about getting out of his campaign in 2016. And of course, he got impeached twice, but he didn't get convicted, so he was never removed from office, and he wasn't even thinking about resigning. And then you have Roy Moore, who had a sexual assault allegation with people that were minors. He didn't even think about getting out of his campaign in 2017. Of course, he lost that election to Doug Jones.
Mm-hmm.
However, he didn't actually take the initiative to just remove himself from the situation and decide not to run for that Senate seat in Alabama. So,
Yeah, because if you think about it, it's going to cost you money. It's going to cost you your dignity. and it's gonna cost you like a place in the history books, like as a
Right.
good person.
And just in general, yes, Andrew Cuomo's career is over in politics. It's going to be very hard for him to get back from this point of resigning from the governor of New York. It's kind of the same thing with Nixon. He never came back into the political arena after he resigned from the presidency. And his dignity is still there because he took the initiative, resigned. He saw that, yes, it's going to look really bad on the Democrat Party. He probably saved a lot of Democrats down the ticket because he resigned. Had he not, and had he won the primary and gone on to run in 2022, he probably would have lost a lot of people down the ticket in congressional seats and possibly a lot of state local elections. So it's very good for him to resign. It saves a lot of Democrats in New York down the ticket, like I said. So I think it really helps the Democrat Party for him to resign. And I think that's something to really stress about how important it is to both make the party that he serves in look good, but also he really needs to put the party before himself, because I think it's more important to have these progressive ideas out there, have politicians to represent these ideas with universal health care and other progressive ideas like that, rather than keep yourself in office just because you think these allegations are false. And I think that's it's a much more important thing for all ideas to come to the table, regardless if they're conservative or liberal, right? And I don't think that's wrong. Sam, do you have anything to say about that?
Yeah, you're all correct.
So I think it's very good for him to resign. I'm glad he did. Yes, it will not be taking into effect until 2 weeks from now. Of course, they do have to have a transitional period between the two governorships, and we'll just have to see what happens from then. Sam, do you have anything to add?
Okay, that's great.
All right, so this next part is kind of funny because Tommy Tuberville, the senator from Alabama, we were just talking about Roy Moore. This is the seat he was running for, and of course, Tommy Tuberville, he beat Doug Jones, the one that won back in 2017 against Roy Moore in 2020, and he's the senator from Alabama. And he was announcing an amendment to a bill basically making it illegal for you to try to defund the police. Basically making, if a Democrat voted against adding this amendment, that they would be against the men in blue, men and women in blue, and it would look bad on the Democrat Party. However, it completely backfired because Cory Booker jumped up and said, "I can't wait for this. This is the highlight of this long process," and we'll show that clip right now.
I call on my colleagues to support our law enforcement by voting yes for this amendment. Opposing my amendment is a vote in support of defunding the police and against the men and women in blue.
The gentleman's time has expired.
Madam President,
Senator from New Jersey.
I am so excited. This is perhaps the highlight of this long and painful and torturous night. This is a gift. If it wasn't complete abdication of Senate procedures and esteem, I would walk over there and hug my colleague from Alabama. And I will tell you right now, thank God, because there's some people who have said that they're members of this deliberative body that want to defund the police, to my horror. And now this senator has given us the gift that finally, once and for all, we can put to bed this scurrilous accusation that somebody in this great esteemed body would want to defund the police. So let all of us, 100 people, not walk, but sashay down there and vote for this amendment and put to rest the lies. And I am sure I will see no political ads attacking anybody here over defund the police. And I would ask unanimous consent to add something else to this obvious bill. Can we add also that every senator here wants to defund the police, believes in God, country, and apple pie? Thank you.
And after seeing that clip, I think everyone can see or hear, depending on if you're just listening to it, that Tommy Tuberville didn't look very good in this situation. He was trying to make the Democrat Party look bad, however, it backfired completely. The Democrats looked like the good people in this situation. Of course, when you have intentions to make someone else look bad and it backfires, it's going to most likely make you look bad. And I think that's what happened in this situation. Sam, do you have any thoughts about this?
Yeah, it was very, very good move by Cory Booker to just turn this thing around. Because number one, it helps pay for the support of the Democratic Party and kind of embarrasses Mr. Senate Representative Congressman Tuberville. I'm sorry about his amendment, and it really helped out the Democratic Party. So it's a very smart move by Cory Booker.
And it ended up with all 100 senators voting for it. And I'm very surprised that happened because rarely does it happen. A lot of times, either someone won't vote or someone just doesn't back their party with the main base of their party votes for it, and everyone doesn't. So it's nice to see that they could work in a bipartisan manner, even something this small where everyone ended up voting for it. Something that was quite controversial, whether or not you should defund the police with Black Lives Matter and stuff like that. So I really think it's very important that this happened. It shows that the Senate can still work in a bipartisan way, even on stuff like this with defund the police and the rhetoric like that. So unless, Sam, do you have anything to add, we can move on.
I think I'm good.
And this is now, we have a bullet point here called Trump argues with everyone, and this is all over his tax returns. So the main rundown right now is the New York Justice Department had his tax returns. However, they're giving it over to the federal government, and the Biden administration won't be getting it to the House for hearings and stuff until November. And during this period of time, Trump can make arguments against putting it into the House and letting hearings commence. His arguments, he's only going after these tax returns because of a political reason, which is probably true. However, I think it's right to know what your president has, or your former president has been using their money, where their money is coming from, and see if they've paid taxes. And as far as we know, there hasn't been much taxes he's paid into the IRS. The New York Times article came out. He's only paid a very little amount of money. Right. And he thinks that it's really helpful to block this and try to procrastinate as much as possible to try to stop the process from happening. Continue to argue with people in the Justice Department. However, it's making him look bad, making it look like he's trying to hide something, which is most likely the case. Of course, we don't know for sure until the hearings happen and the public actually knows about his tax returns, which every other president in recent history has released except him. Of course, another thing is he hasn't released his grades from college and high school as the current president and almost all the other presidents down the line in recent history have. So I think he's just trying to hide something, and he's trying to slow down the process. It's working. It is slowing down the process. However, at the end of the day, it's going to happen. They're going to find his tax returns. There's probably going to be something very shady there. If you're trying to hide something, if you're trying to slow down the process, you're obviously trying to hide something. So it's just going to slow down the process, but he's probably going to be found guilty. Or I would hope he gets found guilty if he's been getting money from Russia or wherever he's getting his money from. And we'll just have to see when the House reveals his tax returns. It's not the first time, and it's not been the last time where Republicans have been doing shady dealings and going behind the public's back. Like, for example, Kelly Loeffler, David Perdue, both former senators of Georgia, Richard Burr, they all bought stock knowing that the coronavirus was coming. They bought stock in PPP companies, and they went behind the back with private information that only people in this circle knew about. And it's not the same, but it's similar to how Trump could possibly be getting money from Russia, how much he's actually in debt by, whether or not he's actually paid taxes to the IRS. And like you said, is this what the Republican Party is about? Yes, there are plenty of Democrats have probably done similar things. However, a lot of them have been pretty upfront about it. And at least big names in the Republican Party up in front. Like, I don't think Biden's done that. Of course, there's been talk about Ukraine. None of it's been proven. The thing with Russia is, yes, it hasn't been confirmed. However, it's almost certain. And once we have his tax returns, we'll know. We have Biden's tax returns, and we know he hasn't gotten money from Ukraine. Yes, he helped his son Hunter and a company in Ukraine. But he hasn't. They say he gets a bunch of money from China. I heard that on the One American News the other day. money from Ukraine when it hasn't been proven, and that's just false information. So Democrats that have big names, Nancy Pelosi, Steny Hoyer, Chuck Schumer, Dick Durbin, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, there hasn't been any major dark dealings with them, which is very different from the Republican Party. And Trump, we basically know he has had these dark dealings with other adversaries, with Russia and other countries. Of course, we don't know about other countries. However, Russia is the main one that everyone talks about. And then other big names. So, like I said, Richard Burr, he's a big, big name. However, he is up front in the Republican Party. He is a senator, and if you're a senator, you're a pretty big name. And I can't imagine how many House members did the same. So, like you said, is this what the Republican Party is about? Because there are so many Republicans that have chosen to go behind the public's back and do something that they wouldn't be upfront about, dark dealings, try to get themselves money and try to help them have more political influence. So I think it's very important for the Republican Party to be like, okay, is this what we're going to be about? Should we try to hide things from the public about where we're putting our money, where we're getting our money? And they just really need to look at it. There are plenty of moderates, not as many as we would like in the Democrat Party, but there are some moderates in the Republican Party that probably don't have these shady dealings. As far as aware, I don't think Susan Collins has any dirty dealings in Maine. But then big names, I bet Ted Cruz has probably had something. Rand Paul did invest something in February with his wife. I don't remember what the company was, but this was right before COVID. So this is another name to the list of people that went behind the public's back to invest in loans with PPP because they know that a lot of stock is going to go down because of COVID and some stock is going to go up. So the Republicans really need to just look at this and they need to shut it down because this is not okay for democracy, for politicians to go behind the public's back. They represent you in Congress, but they need to act like you and not go behind your back and buy a certain stock without you knowing and before the COVID-19 pandemic so they can make more money. Get money from, dark money from Congress. So they really just need to look at this and change it. Because at the end of the day, Republicans, we talk about this a lot on the channel, will not be remembered in a good light if they continue to have a party like this, where they borrow money from adversaries, they don't pay taxes as they should, and they buy stock, knowing that some stock is going to go down, using this private information without telling anybody else. So now we're moving on to our last one, and this is about Republicans are continuing the big lie. And this is what a lot of people call the election fraud claims, a big lie, and that is what it is. Mike Lindell is a really big name. There was, I think it might have been a convention, I don't know if that's what you should call it, but it was basically a convention held in South Dakota. I thought that was a very interesting choice to have it in South Dakota, because there hasn't been any voter fraud claims, because of course that went to Trump, so definitely didn't have any voter fraud, right? Arizona went to Biden, so that's voter fraud, but South Dakota went to Trump, no voter fraud there. And they were contesting and talking about how the voting machines could have been connected to the internet. They possibly could have been configured by China, hacked in to change votes, because this is what I said. They think that you're getting money from China, Biden's getting money from China, when that's just not true. It's not factually correct because it can't be confirmed. And as far as we're aware, that hasn't happened. So they're contesting the election results in the classic states, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Arizona, Georgia, Nevada. So these states that went to Biden by a small margin. And it's basically the same. They're just making up different reasons of how it could have been hacked or the votes could have been changed when none of it can be confirmed. And that's why it's called the big lie. It's not factual if you can't confirm it. And they were talking about, you can go to this page. It was at the convention. They were like, you can go to the page to get more information about the Stop the Steal. When it's not actually information if it can't be confirmed. It's not facts. It's not facts. And a lot of it is just crazy stuff that they're putting out. And especially Mike Lindell, the MyPillow CEO. I won't buy any of his pillows because of the crap he's saying, trying to sway the public's opinion on whether or not this election has been stolen or not, when it has not. There's been no actual solid evidence that there has been any major voter fraud, changing votes from Biden to Trump. Everything is all speculate. They're all speculating on whether or not it's been stolen or not. So there's no solid evidence. So there's no reason to actually believe any of the claims that they are saying. And they're holding against them, and then these new election integrity, I'm putting air quotes because they're not actual election integrity, they're just trying to disenfranchise Democrat voters, like minorities that primarily and predominantly vote Democrat. And they're not actually, like I said, integrity bills. They're just trying to disenfranchise Democrat voters. And I think that could be the big downfall in 2022 for Democrats. Because it's not because their president is unpopular. Biden has a positive approval rating. Fun fact, Trump did not have a positive approval rating this far in his presidency, however, Biden does. Kamala Harris does not, however, Biden does. And for a president to have a positive approval rating, yes, they're probably going to lose seats in the House, possibly in the Senate, we don't really know. But I think they could even lose more because of, one, gerrymandering, and two, these election integrity bills that aren't actually election integrity. If there's a big red tsunami, Biden's message has stayed the same. You know it's from election fraud. And this election integrity, the big lie, and voters trying to believe that the election was stolen and they're coming out in big numbers. So I really think it's the Republican legislature trying to sway people's minds and just block people from voting. And this is not helping our democracy in the United States. And they need to really look at it and say, is this right? And the answer is no, it's not right. And I think this basically wraps up our episode. Make sure to tune in on Tuesday for the next episode. We will be recording in person, hopefully. This will be the first time next week where we'll be recording in person because we've been doing it over a call the past few episodes. So anyways, make sure to tune in for that, and thank you for listening.